I'll never forget Liz Schlorf, who was a member at Canyon City Shepherd of the Hills Church. I arrived there, newly arrived about 15 or 16 years ago, and she had cancer and was the first person I visited, and I'll never forget. She was given a few weeks to live, and I walk in to her home. And there she is with a big grin on her face. And she says, "Oh, Pastor, it's so good to see you." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry to hear about your diagnosis." And with a big grin on her face, she says, "I have so many things to be thankful for." And she went on to enumerate her family and her friends and the great life she had had with her husband before he had passed. And I could hardly get a word in edgewise because she was so busy thanking God for all of the blessings in her life, even though she was facing this difficult diagnosis. Gratitude is a decision. We can choose to be angry about the situations we find ourselves in, or we can choose to have gratitude. When we wake up in the morning, before we put our foot on the floor out of bed, we have a decision to make. Is it gratitude or, "Oh God, not another miserable day"? But it is true, gratitude comes much more easily after a couple cups of coffee, at least for me. The happiest people I know are those who have made gratitude a way of life. Gratitude means thankfulness, counting your blessings, noticing simple pleasures, and acknowledging everything that you have received as a gift from God. It means learning to live your life as if everything was a gift and being aware on a continuous basis of how much you've been given. Gratitude shifts your focus from what your life lacks to the abundance that is already present. The word Eucharist means thanksgiving, and we gather around the table, the altar every Sunday to celebrate Thanksgiving. Even psychologists and psychological research has long shown surprising benefits from practicing gratitude. Giving thanks makes people happier and more resilient. It strengthens relationships and improves health and reduces stress. Studies have found that gratitude opens the door to more relationships. Not only does saying thank you constitute good manners, but showing appreciation can also help you make new friends. A study about human relationships found that thanking a new acquaintance makes them more likely to seek an ongoing relationship. Gratitude improves psychological health. It reduces a multitude of toxic emotions, from envy and resentment to frustration and regret. Gratitude increases empathy and reduces aggression. Grateful people are more likely to behave more kindly, even when others behave less kindly. According to a study, participants who ranked higher on gratitude were less likely to retaliate against others. They experienced more sensitivity and empathy toward other people and had a decreased desire to seek revenge. The study also says grateful people even sleep better. Write a gratitude journal before you go to bed, just a few moments, thinking about the blessings that you received during the day. In a study published in Applied Psychology, it indicated that those who do so go to bed with gratitude, sleep better and longer. And finally, gratitude improves self-esteem. Gratitude reduces social comparisons. Rather than becoming resentful towards people who have more money or better jobs, which is a major factor in reducing self-esteem, grateful people are able to appreciate other people's accomplishments. There's an old legend that tells how a man stumbled upon a great red barn after wandering for days in a forest in the dark. He was seeking refuge from the howling winds of a storm. He entered the barn, and his eyes slowly grew accustomed to the dark. To his astonishment, he discovered that he was in a barn where the devil kept his storehouse of seeds. They were the seeds that were sown in the hearts of human beings. The man became curious and lit a match. He began exploring the piles and the bins of seeds all around him. He couldn't help but notice that the greatest majority of them were labeled seeds of discouragement. About that time, one of the devil's helpers arrived to pick up a load of seeds. The man asked him, "Why the abundance of discouragement seeds?" The helper laughed and replied, "Because they are so effective and they take root so quickly." "Do they grow everywhere?" the man asks. At that moment, the devil's helper became very sullen. He glared at the man with disgust and said, "No, seeds of discouragement will never seem to grow in a heart of a grateful person." Another point in today's gospel is that when Jesus heals the leprosy, he does not merely cure their bodies, he restores them their identities. Remember, lepers are excluded from society. They had to wear a bell around their neck or yell out, "Unclean, unclean," as they traveled about. But Jesus, as he heals them, returns to them their full humanity. They can return to family, community, society, returning to touch those they love. In healing their withered skin and numb limbs, he released them to feel again. And that's what happens to us when we let go of resentment. Our hearts no longer are calloused or hardened, and we too can feel more deeply. Jesus enters a no man's land, a land not of belonging, and invites 10 exiles to return home. The one who did come back and give thanks was a Samaritan, and he was an outcast in the Jewish mind. The words "I'm grateful" constitutes a stance toward life. Gratitude is not only a response to good fortune, but as I mentioned, it's also a choice we make. Certainly that is true of the leper in today's gospel reading. 10 were healed, and no doubt they were surprised at that healing and overjoyed. And they probably ran to tell their family and friends. What we do know, though, is that only one came back and decided to actually give voice to his emotions, to express his gratitude to Jesus and to God. Gratitude is indeed a response to the blessings of life, but it's also a choice to see those blessings, to name them, and express our gratitude in word and in deed. We express our gratitude, we affect those around us as we express that gratitude, and we shape a better world that is so polarized with hate and anxiety these days. Think about it. Gratitude is not the only emotion we might choose to express in response to events of any given day. There are reasons for gratitude, yes, and also reasons for fear, and for anger, and for frustration, and for grief, regret, and apprehension. Each of these emotions colors our experience, makes the experience on center stage in our lives, and perhaps it all visits us one time or another in our day and can seem gloomy. But as we choose gratitude, we give that center stage in our lives and in our emotions as we express thankfulness to God and to others. And so that's the key. We make choices. We feel a range of emotions in all kinds of circumstances and situations, but we choose which emotions to give expression. When confronted by someone who is angry, do we respond with anger? Or do we choose empathy and try to understand why the person is angry? And more often than not, it's because they have something in their heart they're afraid of. When we are set back in some endeavor at school or at work, do we express frustration or a resolve to keep at it and to have gratitude for what the setback helped us learn? These are all choices. Jesus says to all of us who have been touched by his grace, we're not 10 made clean. Where's the other 9? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? And then he said to the foreigner, "Get up and go your way. Your faith has made you well." For Jesus, expressing gratitude is central to a life of faith and for a life of happiness. Lord, help us to develop an attitude of gratitude. We thank you for the blessings that we brought to mind, our families, our loved ones, people who care about us, our church community, friends, and the blessings you've given us in our lives. Help us always to remember to be thankful. Amen.